Hey everybody, welcome back. This is the second lecture for the reading portion of the ATI TEAS study group. Again, this is kind of like my second take with these, trying to break them up into appropriate time frames so they're not hours long. This one is going to be a little longer, but not nearly as long as the last one. Again, our study questions and most of our content today are coming from the ATI TEAS study manual, the 6th edition. So let's just stop squawking about it and let's get started. Let me share my screen with our PowerPoint and get this ball rolling. Oh no, where did my thing go? Okay, so see you next week. Yay, it's next week. So with craft and structure with reading, you need to be able to distinguish between fact and opinion, recognize the structure of text in various formats, interpret the meaning of words and phrases using context, determine the denotative meaning of words. I probably said that word wrong, but we're going to roll with it. Evaluate the author's purpose in a given view, evaluate the author's point of view in a given text, and also use text features. So with this first segment of distinguishing between fact and opinion, biases and stereotypes, key terms are assumption, supposition of an unstated idea. A bias is a tendency toward a preconceived idea. Fact is a statement that can be proven. An opinion is a statement that cannot be proven. Point of view is just a perspective, like where the writer is coming from, like what their perspective of writing is. Stereotype is a simplified categorization of an idea or person based on convention. And tone is the author's voice and attitude toward the topic. So with these questions, we're going to be recognizing factual writing as supported by evidence, recognizing author's point of view in the text versus like with their opinion, their biases and stereotypes, and recognize the author's tone, being able to define the biases and the stereotypes and compare and contrast fact versus opinion. Again, I'm going to pause this. If you can't read this portion up here, I apologize. I tried to fix the main part up here so you can actually see the screen, but if you're not being able to read up here, I'll read to this portion right here. Since the late 16th century, the public has had a strange fascination with Arctic expeditions. These expeditions are launched for many ostensible reasons: to chart new territory, to conduct scientific research, to search for oil, or simply to have an adventure. Consider the many hardships and tragedies these expeditions, Franklin's memorable disease, Shackleton's famous wreck, or the more recent tragedy of the Vladimir Karamanov. So I'll stop right here at this ask. You can pause the video, read for yourself, and then we'll come together and answer the questions, because that's making this go super fast. Okay. Which of the following statements best aligns with the author's point of view? Franklin's Arctic expedition is a memorable story. Arctic explorers' self-gratifying expeditions should be ignored. Adventure, I should say is, not if. Adventure is an adequate reason to risk the hardships of Arctic exploration. Human life should never be risked for scientific pursuits. So we're looking for the statement that aligns with the author's point of view. Let me see, where am I at? Okay. So let's look at this. Franklin's Arctic expedition is a memorable story. That's not correct. Something that is memorable is something that should be kind of recalled regularly. And this author clearly has a negative feeling toward the Arctic explorations. I mean, he uses the words, you know, useless, ostensible, hardships, tragedies. So human life is a risk, dangerous efforts. I mean, the tone is clearly negative here. So for him to talk about how Franklin's Arctic expedition is a memorable story, that doesn't align with the author's point of view. Again, I apologize for this typo. Adventure is an adequate reason to risk the hardships of Arctic exploration. That's not correct. That does not align with what this author, what they're trying to say. Human life should never be risked for scientific pursuits. Although that's correct, never is one of those kind of like big, one of those words we've talked about, one of those like big red flag words. Human life should never be risked for scientific pursuits. That's the incorrect answer. That's not right. B is the correct answer. Arctic explorers' self-gratifying expedition should be ignored. So he's saying that, you know, people that want to go explore the Arctic, he feels that their expeditions are self-gratifying and they shouldn't be acknowledged. They should just be, again, ignored. But he doesn't say that human life should never be risked for scientific pursuits. And this question has nothing to do with the reading above. Which of the following is a factual statement? Again, we're looking for fact, not crap. Obesity is caused by inappropriate eating habits. Obese people do not have willpower. 1 in 3 adolescents is obese. Obese people just need to lose weight. So let's look at something, because we're trying to find the factual statement. Let's differentiate what's the opinion. Let's look for opinion statements and get that crap literally out. Inappropriate eating habits. Well, I know plenty of people who are considered obese and they have fantastic eating habits. There's just something chemically going wrong with their body and they're just keeping the weight on. So A is incorrect. Obese people do not have willpower. Again, that's an opinion. That's bullcrap. 1 in 3 adolescents is obese. That could possibly be something that could be factually proven. So let's hang on to that one. And then D is obese people just need to lose weight. Like, that's crap. So C is the correct answer. That's the factual statement. It's the statement that can be proven true or false. Options B and D are obviously biases. They don't have willpower and just need to lose weight. And although option A might be a proven aspect of obesity, it's not the only proven cause. Again, it's like I said before, there are plenty of people that I know that are considered obese that have great eating habits, and you know, they can be considered obese, but you know, who knows if they've just lost 50 pounds. So, I mean, I don't know, it's crap. We're moving on. Okay, recognize the structure of text in various formats. Key terms or anecdote. A short story that illustrates a concept, but it's not the main idea. Arguments are contentious tomes. Modes are forms of writing. Persuasive is intending to make the reader believe an idea. Rhetoric is the use of elements of language. Structures are ways of logically organizing ideas. So these questions, the objectives that I want to focus on are knowing the modes, whether it's persuasive, expository, or just a narrative. Identifying compare and contrast, and stating cause and effect, recognizing problem solutions. So pause, read this email from Hal to Deborah, and we're gonna answer the question. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is going so much faster. This is amazing. You don't have to hear me squawk as much. Gosh, that's nice. So, which of the following identifies the mode of the passage? Expository, persuasive, argumentative, narrative, or descriptive? Well, it is descriptive, but that's not the mode of the passage. That's not the reason that Hal is emailing Deborah. He's not just trying to describe Alex Jones from accounting. He is, but it's not necessarily just kind of trying to describe him. He's not trying to expose him. So A is incorrect as well. It's not a narrative. He's not just kind of like talking about the new executive opening and you know, he briefly discusses it seems unusual to add new people, especially when we have good people that already work here. The answer is B. It's persuasive and argumentative. Although he's not necessarily arguing, he's trying to persuade her to consider Alex Jones from accounting. People like him, can't imagine him doing anything to disappoint you or the company for that matter. Just call him up for an interview and I think you'll see what I mean. He's trying to persuade her to consider Alex Jones for the executive opening. And he puts a plug in there that we're getting Chinese food, so give menu requests to Andy. Like it's just a brief little email, but he is trying to persuade her to consider Alex Jones from accounting. So the answer is B, persuasive / argumentative, although he's not necessarily arguing. So here's another one. Recognize the structure of text in various formats. So again, pause, read this. What we're going to do is we're going to try to find the following signal word to fill in the blank right here. So read it, and then we'll answer the question. Okay. So which of these statements could be plugged in right here to this sentence? Arizona is large, having an area of 114,000 square miles. Blank, Rhode Island is only about a tenth the size, having an area of only 1,214 square miles. So we're looking for a phrase that compares the two. We're not looking for a phrase that indicates they're similar, and we're not looking for a phrase that shows that there's I don't want to say like complete polar opposites, but I'll get to that. So like A, in like manner, we can already know that that's incorrect. Like 114,000 square miles is nothing like 1,200 square miles. Like there's a complete difference. So they are not in like manner. B is incorrect because, you know, what is the size of Rhode Island have anything to do in consequence of how large Arizona is? Like, although Arizona is large, Rhode Island is not consequently only about a tenth of the size. It's not a cause and effect. So B is incorrect. And again, D follows that same kind of thing, in spite of. So it's not one of those signal phrases that indicates that it was a cause and effect. Because Arizona is large, in spite of Rhode Island being small, it's not one of those things. The correct answer is C, in comparison. So if we plug that in, Arizona is large, having an area of 114,000 square miles. In comparison, Rhode Island is only about a tenth the size, having an area of only 1,214 square miles. So C is the correct answer because it compares the two. It's not a cause and effect of consequently or in spite of, and it's not similar with A of in like manner. Interpret the meaning of words and phrases using text. The connotation is an implied meaning of a word or idea. Denotation is an explicitly stated meaning of a word or idea. And figurative is by a figure of speech, usually a metaphor. So like figuratively speaking, sometimes I feel that these lectures are a drive through Texas. They just take forever. And that's why I'm editing them and I'm cutting out a lot of the crap. So with this next question, we're going to identify the correct definition of a word, identify a source to find vocabulary definitions, distinguish between figurative and connotative meanings, recognizing the cumulative effect of specific word choice on meaning. So again, go ahead, pause, read, And I would even read all of these and kind of like read through the questions, because then together we'll go through the questions at the end. Pause, read, and we'll get back to it. Okay. Let's look at the first answer for the first question. Which of the following identifies the mood of the passage? Adventurous, excited, nervous, or scared? Well, option A is incorrect, because the setting might be adventurous. The narrator's tone was more anxious. We had no choice. We ran the ship's engines to produce heat and whiled away the days with card games and old magazines. Like, very anxious building. So although it was adventurous, it's not a happy adventurous. And the same thing with excited. Like, this isn't, you know, explaining how kids are waiting for Christmas morning. Like, this is talking about a ship that smashed into the Arctic Circle, and these men hoping for rescue. So although it may be adventurous and exciting, that's not the tone that we're looking for. D indicates fear. So there is fear here. Days turned into weeks, and soon the reserves were low. We had neither the fuel nor the food to keep us up indefinitely. On the third week, the captain made his decision. We loaded up the sled dogs and set across the ice. We were apprehensive about leaving the ship, but we knew that we could not stay. So although there was fear and being scared, the tone and the mood, or I guess the mood, was C, nervous. C is the correct answer because it combined the use of this collective feeling of just uncertainty. I don't know if that makes sense. So let's move on to the next question. Which of the following words from the sentence has a negative connotation? So we're looking for the specific word that indicates that there's a negative connotation. Foolishness, practical, real, admiration. Well, admiration means that you're admiring something. Real means something that is like tangible, real. When something is practical, it means that it's like kind of wise. Like, oh, that was a practical decision. That was a wise decision. And foolishness. So yeah, it's A. Which of the following words in the sentence has a negative connotation? We shake our heads at explorers' foolishness and transfer our admiration to people who have made real discoveries in other more practical fields of knowledge. So like the real discoveries means like that actual discovery. Practical fields of knowledge is like a smart field of knowledge. And admiration is to people who've made these real discoveries in these practical fields. So the word that has the negative connotation is A, foolishness. Number 3, which of the following is the meaning of capital in the passage? An exchange made to keep a business lucrative, money allotted for specific purposes, the center of a town, state, or nation, a certain amount of working money to keep a business going. So option D is the correct answer. Before I just try to kind of fluff around all the other reasons why, it's the certain amount of working money to keep a business going, because they need enough capital to tide him over slack periods and emergencies. So again, that is, it takes a certain amount of working money to keep a business going. It says it right here. It even describes it right here. So an exchange made to keep a business lucrative, that's not correct. Money allotted for specific purposes, that could be considered a correct answer, but it's not. D is the most correct answer. Again, that's that nursing question. Which one is the most correct answer? And C is just like your left field, like where did you get that from? Because a capital can be a center of a town, state, or a nation. Like it can be the nation's capital, it can be a state capital. So, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about like that central location. We're talking about the amount of working money to keep a business going. We're talking about a business's capital. Okay, determine the denotative meaning of words. Context is nearby text that influences understanding. Guide words are words in a dictionary that help readers locate words. Parts of speech, basic types of words in English, and a word origin is how a word came, not care, came to its current use and meaning. So we need to identify the correct definition of a word, identify a source to find vocabulary definitions. So which of the following sets of guide words would appear at the top of a printed dictionary page containing the word aptitude? So if we're looking for aptitude in a dictionary, we're looking for either the letters before APT and the letters that would come after APT. So anesthetize and anthology, that's incorrect. Aptitude's not going to be on that page. Appellation and aviator, that is actually the correct answer because APP will come before APT and AVI will come after APT. Does that make sense? How aptitude would be on this page. Allergic and apology, APO, aptitude comes after that. An area and army, that's not correct either. Aptitude is not going to be anywhere near that page. So again, we're trying to find out where aptitude would fit in between these two, and the correct answer is B, appellation and aviator. Your friend came across the word set in a text and he is unsure of its meaning within the context of the sentence. You show your friend how to look up the word using an online source, and you notice that it has a long list of meanings associated with it. Which of the following hints should you offer your friend to help him narrow down which definition might be the correct one? The correct meaning is usually the first definition listed in the entry. Using guide words to locate the word in a printed dictionary, which is likely more accurate. Determine how the word is functioning within the sentence. Identify its part of speech and find the definitions that match that part of speech. Find the connotative meaning of the word. So again, we're looking for how to tell your friend what the word set means in the sentence. So set could mean a slew of different things. It can mean so many things. But the correct answer is C. And I'm going to explain why. Because the correct meaning is not usually the first definition in the entry. And using the guide words to locate it in a dictionary, although you can do that, that's not going to help him understand how set works in the sentence. It'll tell you the definition of the word and maybe even some other words that might also mean it, but it's not going to help us with that sentence. And determining the connotative meaning or additional implied meaning for this word, it's not going to help because we need to determine how it functions within the sentence and identify its part of speech. Like, is it a noun? Is it a verb? Is it an adjective? Like, we need to find out what it means in the sentence, like what it's trying to explain in the sentence, and then find the definition that matches the part of speech. So the correct answer is C. Okay. Evaluate the author's purpose in a given text. Anthology is a published collection of related works. The audience is the intended consumers of the information. So who is this? Who is reading this? Who is my audience? Authorial intent is the reason an author creates a text. A caption is a description of a figure or a graphic. And a publication is a printing of distribution of text. We need to be able to distinguish between fact and opinion, summarize and compare information within a text, not within. Recognizing tone within context, drawing inferences about an author's purpose or message, distinguishing between informational, persuasive, expository, and entertaining. So go ahead, pause, read, unpause, we'll come back for the sentence or for the question. Sorry, give me just a second. Okay, so what's the primary purpose of this text? To entertain readers with the story of the superstar's visit, to entice readers to listen to the superstar's music, or to persuade readers to like the superstar, or to inform the readers of the superstar's visit. Well, it doesn't really talk about her music. So it doesn't entice readers to listen to her music, and it doesn't really persuade readers to like the superstar. This isn't really written for entertaining purposes. The purpose of this text is to D, inform the readers of the superstar's visit. Because it talks about the whereabouts of what she did. I mean, yes, it talks about how she donated money to the local food bank and how she visited a child care center. I mean, it talks about some of the cool things that she did, but it's really kind of a neutral tone. It was brief, but certainly noticeable. Visited a local child care center. It doesn't really talk about how she enjoyed interacting with the children. And I mean, she gave a speech fostering youth leadership within a community, but then she donated 10 grand to a food bank. Yeah, it talks about what she did, but it's to inform the readers of her visit. That's the purpose of the text. So evaluate the author's point of view in a given text. Excuse me. Fact checking, verifying facts and statements in a text. Again, like I've said before, you may want to fact check that. Fact check it. A peer-reviewed journal is published writings that have been analyzed by experts in the field. So with these questions, or with this question, you're going to recognize different perspectives in a text. You're going to evaluate the text source, comparing text from different sources and opinions. Evaluate the relevancy and accuracy of the information, gathering, organizing, and interpreting the information. So, again, I'll just go ahead and read this. You're reading your reference letters for a candidate seeking employment with your business. Based on what you know about the author's purpose, a reference letter from which of the following individuals is most likely to be accurate regarding the candidate's skills and ability to perform the job effectively? The candidate's previous employer, the candidate's major advisor at his university, a supervisor in a volunteer organization, or the candidate's longtime family friend. So who do you think is going to give them the most accurate information about their job skills? Well, a longtime family friend has a bias. They're going to butter them up like a piece of toast. A supervisor in a volunteer organization may be able to give the skills, may be able to describe the skills and abilities of the candidate, but not in the realm of employment. They can speak to their character within the volunteer organization, but not as an employee. The major advisor at his university, again, there's a bias there. The advisor at the university is going to want to put their candidate and their student, they're going to want to put them at the best foot forward because they are a representation of them from the university. So option is A, the candidate's previous employer is going to be the most likely to be accurate regarding the candidate's skills and ability to perform the job functions effectively. Number two, go ahead, pause it, read it, we'll go over the answers. I'm not trying to be lazy, I'm just trying to be effective. Okay, we're looking for what will tell whether the author is qualified to make the decision that they've made to find, to provide the reliable information. So option A is interesting information. But it's not going to prove that the author is more or less reliable than another. Option A would be really interesting to see, but it's not going to be really effective in determining of the who is speaking of this. Reviews from readers that are posted on each source's site. That's not. I know that you guys have probably seen reviews on, and I keep hinting at Amazon, but reviews are absolutely like dog crap. And I'll explain this in a minute, just really briefly. So I had my last baby, and I was looking for, before she was born, I was looking for play yards and play yard mattresses. And I hate so much the parents that don't actually give a good review of, I've had this for X amount of months. We have folded it down. We've traveled with it. We've done this. We've done that, blah, blah, blah. And it's held up. It's still just as sturdy as the day we pulled it out of the box, blah, 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 whatever. Or, you know, we had this for 2 months and it broke because of this, that, or the other thing, or the dog climbed in it and snapped a bar, or, you know, like something like that. People leave the stupidest reviews. And I know you guys have probably seen that before. I was so sick and tired of seeing the reviews of, it's a 5-star review, and it's because they pulled it out of the box and set it up, and oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. My baby's not due for 3 more weeks, and I just love this. I can't wait to put her in it. Like, what? You don't even know how it holds up, and you gave it a 5-star review? You're not a credible source. Get out of here. Dislike, get out. So reviews from readers are not exactly always factual. Links on each site that show where readers can go to obtain additional information, although that's really helpful. And that is, if you choose to go do more research, these links also, there might be a bias here. Because it's not just, you know, this can be something that the reader provides to kind of like guide you in the direction that show that they're credible. B is the correct answer. The About section, which lists information about each author's educational and professional background. Sorry, there's a typo there again. As well as organizational affiliation. So like, who's backing them? Where are they coming up with these ideas? Like, who's providing the funding for these things? That's important. You got to know that. So option B is the correct answer to find more sources to determine the author if they're presenting reliable information. That's your answer, B. Use text features. Aesthetic is guiding principles of a piece of work. A footnote is the comment at the bottom of a page that refers to something within the text. The heading is the title. So like these are headings up here at the top, the red. Query is a question. Search engine is a website to locate information online. So we typically know as Google. Like, oh, Google knows. What's the blah, 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 blah to something or another? Well, I don't know, Google knows. Search term are words used to find information via a search engine. So that's what you would type. What's the blah, blah, blah to the yada, yada? That's what you type into Google. Subheading is a title of a subdivision of information with a larger text. So like this up here is our heading, and the key terms and the objectives are our subheadings. And superscript is text that is smaller and above surrounding text. So if I had like the key terms surrounding this, or if I had the key terms surrounding this, that would be superscript. Sorry, moving on. My brain just farted really bad. This objective includes locating headings and subheadings, identifying features, so the key, legend, bold, italic, footnote, glossary, index, table of contents, things like that. And being able to use navigational tools and media. So like a search query, knowing how to operate a search engine, search term. Which of the following identifies why the following passage includes italicized print? In his most recent work, Free Popcorn Under the Bleachers, Mr. Andrews offers readers a humorous account of his childhood growing up as the youngest of 8 children. Is it an advertisement, a subheading, a footnote, or a book title? So we didn't go over this, and this is kind of something that if you're not familiar with, I really strongly encourage you to use Khan or use Crash Course. any of the resources that I provided in the first lecture to double check this, because the answer is D. It's a book title. Book titles are italicized in text, because also we can look at in his most recent work. That's an indication that it's a book. The portion of italicized print appear as part of a larger sentence. Its context indicates it's not an advertisement. The italicized print does not serve to organize the text in any way as subheadings do. And footnotes are included at the bottom of the page. So this is part of a sentence. It's a book title. And so I also encourage you to understand italicizing versus underlining book titles versus like chapter headings, or not underlining, I guess, quotations. Check that out. Make sure you're familiar with it. Okay, moving on to integration of knowledge and ideas. We're going to identify primary sources in various media. We're going to use evidence from text to make predictions and inferences and draw conclusions about a piece of writing. We're going to compare and contrast themes from print and other sources. We're going to evaluate an argument and its specific claims, as well as evaluate and integrate data from multiple sources in various formats, including media. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're gonna breeze right through this bad boy. Identify primary sources in various media. So something we need to understand with this key term is degrees of separation. What that means is the number of steps removed from an origin. So like you will, like degrees of separation. So I'm doing this video for Trio for you. That's basically 2 degrees of separation. So it's me to Trio to you. So like if I explain about, it's kind of like that friend of a friend of a friend thing. How many degrees of separation is that? You know, how many friends of friends of friends do you know this person? So like if we think about it like cousins, like your first cousin is the child of your aunt or your uncle. Your second cousin is children of your cousin. Does that make sense? So like those degrees of separation. Anyway, moving on. Primary source is a first-hand document of a source created at the time in question. The secondary source is second-hand accounts of events, and a tertiary source is a compilation of primary and secondary sources. So we're going to identify these primary sources, be able to recognize them and where they pop up, and locating information within a primary source. So which of the following is a primary source document? A textbook containing original photographs purchased directly from photojournalist, diaries of World War II prisoners of war, diary entries of World War II prisoners printed in newspapers in honor of Veterans Day, or D, a newspaper article retelling one town's history with violent acts. So let's, oh, I'm not even on the right page of my book. I apologize. Let's look at these options. Well, a textbook containing an original photograph, although that's a pretty good source, it's not correct. It's second-hand, because the original photograph that was purchased from the photojournalist has now been reprinted in a textbook. So that is actually second-hand. That's not first-hand. So now let's look at the diary entries printed in newspapers in honor of Veterans Day. Again, they're not primary source documents, they're secondary source documents, they're second-hand. Although they're diary entries that are word for word, they're printed in the newspapers in honor of Veterans Day. So that's not a primary source. That's not actually like a direct line of information. And if there were artifacts or documents written by those who lived through the violent acts, those artifacts or documents would be primary sources. But because it's retelling That's the big word there. Retelling one town's history with violent acts. Again, that's a secondary source. The correct answer is B, Diaries of World War II Prisoners of War. That is a primary source document. The diaries are the one and only thing separating the reader from the writer. And that's what's important is how many degrees of separation is it from the reader from the writer. So which of the following is generally true regarding primary source documents? Ancient artifacts such as handmade weapons and tools are almost always considered primary sources. A document is either whole a primary source document or not. Textbooks almost always use primary source documents. And D, primary sources only refer to print documents. Well, D is incorrect. Primary sources can exist in all different media, including print and non-print. Some sources can be both primary or secondary, depending on how readers or viewers access them. Option B might be true for some textbook vendors, or option C, excuse me, might be true for some textbook vendors, but it's not a rule and it's not a known fact. So like you can't just judge literally a book by its cover and hope that a textbook is always going to use primary source documents. The correct answer is A. Ancient artifacts such as handmade weapons and tools are almost always considered primary sources because again, it's that direct link from someone who originally experienced it or made it or wrote it to somebody who's either viewing it, holding it, seeing it, whatever. It's that direct link from someone in the past who created the artifacts to somebody who is in the present looking at it. It's a primary source. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. Okay. Use evidence from text to make predictions and inferences and draw conclusions about a piece of writing. So foreshadowing is an author's hints of events to come, and a prediction is a reader's guess of events to come. So we're going to synthesize the information from the text to form a prediction, make an inference, and form a conclusion. Cite evidence from the text to support a prediction, inference, or conclusion. Okay, go ahead and read this first. We'll read the piece here, and then we'll answer the questions. Go ahead, pause it, read it, unpause, come back. I'm running out of water. Which of the following might indicate that the sisters were forced apart by poverty? A, their father was forced to send them away. B, they would eventually come back to one another and be closer than ever before. C, the grandmothers met every year. Or D, their mother had cried. Well, let's look at this question. We're looking for what indicates that the sisters were forced apart. Well, let's see. The strongest piece of evidence to suggest that the family was too poor to care for the young girls is option A. He was forced to send them away because they'd eventually come back to another and be closer than ever. It's a effect from the cause that they were forced apart. The grandmothers met every year, again, supports that they would come back to one another. And their mother had cried. That's just kind of an irrelevant answer. It has nothing to do with indicating that they were forced apart. It just is again, an effect because they were forced apart by their poverty. They were so poor, their father had to send them away. So option A is correct. So which of the following is a reasonable conclusion about what the author will include in the pages to come? So this is where we're talking about the foreshadowing. Like what in this portion right here indicates what we're going to read about next. So let's read. But they will tell you this day that it was the one thing and one thing only, the shed. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Information about their father's profession and what caused their poverty. No, I don't think that's what we're going to move on to next. Accounts of sisters and other families who seem to have a sixth sense about one another. That may be included later on, but that's not what we're going to read about next. Information about their mother who suffered from depression. well, it doesn't even say that their mother suffered from depression. It just talks about how she cried out of fear that they would never know one another well. So that's crap. Information about the significance and history of the shed and a moment the grandmother shared there. D is the correct answer because that's the foreshadowing of this sentence. So they're going to tell you this day it was the one thing and one thing only, the shed. So obviously the writer, the author, is going to include information about the importance and the history of the shed and why it was so integral to why these grandmothers stayed close. Like what happened there that made that occur? So that's what's going to be, that's what he's going to talk about. Okay. Compare and contrast themes from print and other sources. So genre is a group of related writings or other media. So like with movies and books, like there's comedy, there's romance, there's drama, there's horror, there's action and suspense. Social commentary is the use of rhetoric to make statements about current culture. Social structure is the system and relationships between groups of society. And a theme is a foundational concept engaged with by a piece of art. So we're going to list the similarities and differences across themes. We're going to recognize similar themes across cultures. Compare and contrast a theme from one author or topic. Compare and contrast themes across genres. So which of the following are ways in which both print and non-print sources express a theme? Repetition and prominence, camera angles, lighting, length of work. So again, we're looking at print, which is writing, and non-print sources. So if it's non-print, print and non-print are not going to have camera angles, because how can you have a camera angle in a book? Lighting, again, the same thing. How can you have lighting in print and non-print? You can describe it. You can describe the lighting, but that's a description, not actual lighting. And length of work, it doesn't matter if it's a short, few 3 or 4 sentences or whether it's a 3-hour movie. Thanks, James Cameron. It doesn't matter the length of work that determines the theme. The correct answer is A. Both writers and artists express themes by repeating ideas or images or by giving one idea or image prominence in a work. So like if something they come back to, that repetition and prominence will indicate the theme, whether it's a book or whether it's like a movie. So camera angles, lighting, and length of work is all crap. It does not indicate a theme. Repetition and prominence is the theme. Which of the following is true about themes? They typically occur only once within a print source. They only exist in print media. They can reveal information about a specific culture or time period. And different artists or authors' treatments of a single theme should not be compared. Readers and viewers can learn a great deal by comparing and contrasting how different artists and authors develop the same theme within their work. So like if we look at movies, let's just kind of think about movies for a minute and think about like M. Night Shyamalan, who did Signs, he did Lady in the Water, he did, oh my gosh, what was that movie with Mark Wahlberg where the plants made people kill themselves? I don't remember, but The Village, like things like that. So like they're all his work of suspense, horror. Like he made these stories with the intent to kind of like put you on edge and make you afraid. The way that he does it is drastically different from how Alfred Hitchcock did his. I mean, yes, there's similarities between the two, but they're two completely different artists and treatments of the horror theme. And yeah, we can definitely compare it. And how they develop the same theme within their work. So D is not the correct answer, it's crap. Though themes exist differently in non-print media, they're definitely present. So, so again, B is incorrect. Themes can exist, I mean, even in music. if we listen to some composers, they're going to do specific kind of music for specific movies. I mean, they can't do, so like one of my favorite composers, by far, hands down, Ramin Djawadi. He did the music for Game of Thrones. He's done the music for Westworld. He's done music for a lot of really good things. He actually did the music for the first Iron Man, which I thought was like super rad. Anyway, aside from that, for him to kind of pivot and do music for like a Disney movie, it's not going to sound the same as the music for Game of Thrones. There may be similarities because of his writing process, but that theme, it doesn't only exist in print media. Does that make sense? Because it's music, he'll still have these themes with audible media. So anyway, B is not correct, it's crap. A, in order for a theme to be recognized, it must be prominent within a source, which typically means it's repeated multiple times throughout the work. So for a theme to only occur once within a print source, that's crap. That is not how it works at all. It's repetitive. Again, moving back to this first question, print and non-print sources express theme is repetition and prominence. So if it only occurred once, that's contradicting itself. It's not correct. The correct answer is C. Common themes can reveal information about a specific culture or time period. So, I mean, it can reveal information about beliefs, attitudes, afflictions of people within a culture or within a specific period of time. I mean, a movie from the 20s is going to be drastically different from, in the US, a movie from the 20s in the US is going to be drastically different from movies in the 30s or wartime. Things like that, they're going to have completely different themes. So the correct answer is C. Evaluate an argument and its specific claims. An argument is a set of reasons to make a case for an idea. So like, what's your argument for, you know, why peanut butter is better than Nutella? You know, you have to bring these reasons to make a case for an idea. A claim is a statement that something is true. So you can make a claim, but you have to be able to back it up with your support and your arguments. So again, research-based is reliant upon ideas backed by a study. So like if we did that peanut butter versus Nutella, we'd have to take, you know, a handful of YC students and give them Nutella and peanut butter and say, which one do you like more? And then we'll use those statistics to either support or deny the claim that peanut butter is better than Nutella, which I don't agree. I think they're both fabulous. I love them both. Anyway, but support lends credibility to an idea. And when something is valid, it's proven as true. So we're going to identify the argument, the supporting evidence, and we're going to examine the information that supports the argument and evaluate the relevance and sufficiency of the evidence. That's what this objective wants you to understand. Okay, go ahead, pause, read the letter to the fellow community residents, and then we will answer the questions. I'm running low on water, go figure. Okay, what's the writer's main argument? That Bob's Brownie Barn is important to the community. Community members should donate money to help the owners of Bob's Brownie Barn. The community has loved Bob's Brownie Barn for at least 3 generations, and $10,000 is not very much money. Well, as I even like typed this out, I went, oh, that's a lot of crap. $10,000 is a lot of money. Thank you, get out of here. So we know that option D is incorrect. So the tactic that the writer uses to convince readers, he says $10,000 is not very much money. So he expresses that it might seem like a large sum, but he backs it with $12,000. If each of us just gives $1, the owners would likely have more than enough to pay for the cleanup. So it's not the main argument, it's a supporting argument. Options A and C are pieces of evidence the writer provides, but it's not the main argument. B is the main argument. The community members should donate money to help the owners of Bob's Brownie Barn. That is the main argument of this entire letter. There's just supporting statements and supporting details to the argument to support his claim. Does that make sense? Because, you know, he's stating that $10,000 isn't much money. The community's loved this place for 3 generations, and it's important to the community. So our community members should donate money to help the owners of Bob's Brownie Barn. Does that make sense? Okay, moving on. Which of the following is evidence the writer provides to support the main argument? So the tenants above the Brownie Barn have moved out. Most of the families living in the community today have lived in the community for several generations. The community bank is an example of goodwill. The Brownie Barn has been a frequent donor to various community causes. So we're looking for evidence that this writer provides to support the main argument of how the community members should donate money to help them. So the tenants moving out of the Brownie Barn, that's not the support. It doesn't support the main argument. It's just a detail. The families that have lived in the community today have lived in the community for several generations. Again, that's a supporting detail, but not supporting the main argument. The community bank is an example of goodwill. So again, it's a detail. It doesn't support the main argument. The main thing that really drives it home for the community to help support Bob's Brownie Barn is that the Brownie Barn has been a frequent donor to various community causes. So they've given back to the community, you should give back to them, kind of a thing. That supports the main argument, is the Brownie Barn's been a frequent donor to various community causes. The other things are just supporting details that it's been a frequent donor to various community causes. I hope that makes sense. We're gonna move on. Okay, evaluate and integrate data from multiple sources in various formats, including media. So we're gonna look at a chart, which is a diagram that graphically represents data. A diagram is a symbolic representation of information. A graph is a type of diagram that mathematically displays data. Information specialist is a library employee who helps patrons find information. A library media specialist is a library employee who helps patrons find media sources. And a professional journal is published periodical texts that represent a specific industry. So you can see a nursing journal, you can see a surgical journal, you can see an oncological journal, you can see physical therapy journals. I mean, they represent something specific to an industry. So we're going to synthesize the data from the text, charts, or graphs, organize the data from these sources, examine the data, combine the data, and we're going to select the relevant data. That's what you need to be able to understand with these kind of questions on the TEAS. Again, I hope you can read this. If you can't, I apologize. Without annihilating the book, I can't get anything better. I even, again, rehashed this out, tried to do a better picture, and this is the best I got. So go ahead, pause it, and we pause it, look over the information, and read the emails, and then we will answer the questions. And this will be the last slide for the day. Which is good because I'm out of water. Okay. Which of the following information sources present a potentially negative picture of Mr. Groton? So we're looking for something that gives a negative connotation. We're looking for something that paints him in a negative light. Data on employee absences and data on productivity. Data on productivity and data from client satisfaction surveys. Data from client satisfaction surveys and an email from a current client. Email from a current client and data on employee absences. So which of these makes him look the worst? So let's look at this. The email from the current client paints him at a really positive light. He says, He's been working with him for 10 years now, and he can say with confidence that he is the sole reason. I do not explore other options. He is competent, attentive, and knows what services will suit the needs of my customers. So this is this paints him in a positive light. So option D is incorrect, and option C is incorrect. The email from the current client says that things are going well. And if we look at this graph here, the client satisfaction is rising. Now, if we look at the data on employee absences, they're rising. The absences over a 3-month period, they're rising. So more and more employees are not showing up. And because of that, productivity is going down. So the following information that present the potentially negative picture of Mr. Groton is option A. The decreasing number of absences, it seems within the control of Mr. Groton. Like he can at least do some kind of incentive program to make sure that his employees are showing up. So anyway, moving on. Which of the following data seems to rely entirely on Mr. Groton to improve? Employee absences, productivity, satisfaction survey results, and complimentary emails from clients. He has no control over whether his clients send emails about him, so that's not the correct answer. And so, and the other thing too is some clients might not even complete the survey, despite how they feel about him and how he feels his company is improving. They may feel great and not send in the survey. They may feel bad and not send in the survey. So he has no control over that. Outside factors such as new clients' budgets could play a role in whether they sign on as new clients. But so again, that's out of his control. He doesn't have the control of the productivity and how many more new clients are signing on. The option that he does have control over, which like I said in the last sentence, in the last question, is A, employee absences. He can figure something out to incentivize employees to be present for the day that they are assigned to work. He can do something to make it so that the employees show up and the absences go down. And question number 3, again, you can do on your own time if you wish. I just included it here. So imagine you're asked to make a decision about whether to fire Mr. Groton. What additional information would you need in order to feel comfortable with your choice? If you want to do this question, great. If you don't, yeah, whatever. So that wraps up the second portion of reading. Again, reading comprehension is really important as a healthcare provider because you are the middleman. You have to be able to take medical jargon and regurgitate it to a patient. This is also really important with like change of shift report. So when you have a new nurse that comes on, like, okay, well, how's patient A doing? Well, they're doing this. I did this. So you need to be able to reiterate and regurgitate the information in an effective manner. And also too, specifically with teaching patients. A lot of times doctors, surgeons can use really intimidating language with patients because that's just how their mind works. They're medically minded, and the nurse can step in and say, okay, well, what they're saying is that this is happening with this, and that's happening with that, and we have to fix it this way. Again, it's really important, and these are foundational skills that need to be built upon, and that's why reading is so important, and why there needs to be at least something to build upon with being a nursing student and being in nursing school. So again, thank you so much for joining me. This is really fun. I hope I can get some more of these done today and get them edited and get them fixed and make them better and clearer. But I'm really grateful that you joined me today, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.